Hi, I'm Alex, this is Pucksandpaperbacks, and I read 18 books in the last 2 months. Welcome to my recent reads. I'll have a whole playlist down below if you want to see all of my recent reads, if you missed any of my wrap-ups over the last couple months, or you're just new here and you want to hear all of my thoughts on queer and trans books, feel free to hit subscribe. And today I will be sharing with you all of the books I have read in the last 2 months. August, I read 14 books. In August, I participated in the Amazing Readathon. This was an amazing race-inspired readathon created and hosted by Brianna over at Four Paws in a Book. Her channel will be linked down below because this was intense, but so fun. Like, if you want something to dedicate your time to, and you just want to get all of the books that you have been telling yourself you were going to get to, and you never did, sign up for the Amazing Readathon because it was so fun. I was on Team Yellow, go Yellow, and I do have a reading vlog. I'll link it up above, so I won't be talking about the books too much because I made some vlogs and have already talked about some of these, so little disclaimer for that. But oh my god, I had such a fun August, and I read a bunch of books for a new video series I'm doing called Trope Taste Test. The first video should be up now, where I read Academic Rivals. Basically, I am trying to figure out what my favorite tropes are. And so if you want to know more about that, go over to that video. But without further ado, let's get into all of the books I have read in July and August. Starting with Teacher of the Year by M.A. Wardell. This was an adult romance. It had Jewish rep, the author is Jewish, and this was such a good romance. If you like that one show that follows a school that I am being totally vague about because I support the writers and actors strike, you will like this, especially because it's an Achillean romance. This is a debut self-published romance following Marvin, who is a kindergarten teacher, and when he gets a new student, he ends up meeting her dad, and things progress. I liked the conversations in this book because it is a sweet, wholesome romance, but it really dives into bigger topics. There's a huge trigger warning for alcoholism, as one of our characters is in sobriety, and for Marvin, his mother is a recovering alcoholic, and so there is a lot of conversation about that and childhood trauma and things like that, so big trigger warning for that. But I think the conversations are done very well, and what I liked is that Marvin does not go unchecked. There are a lot of things that he said that rubbed me the wrong way, but then when they were challenged, I was happy about it, because there is a big conversation about bisexuality. At the beginning of the book, Marvin is biphobic, and it pissed me off so much at the beginning because he kept saying, oh, well, the dad is definitely straight, and that just makes me so angry all the time, because especially coming from queer people, but it just shows that, like, nobody's perfect, but also queer people are like this. Nobody's perfect, and queer people can still be biphobic and homophobic, and so that pissed me off, but I'm really glad it was challenged. There are a lot of people around him who are like, hey, you're in the wrong for this. And so I really enjoyed that. But if you want a steamy romance, I highly recommend this. I thought it was really good, and I just loved every minute of it. I saw it recommended on TikTok from Satoria Reads. I'll have her link down below as well, and I was so glad that she recommended this because it was really good. Next few books I read for my Trope Taste Test video, so I'm not going to go into depth about them. You can go and check out that video if you want to know more, but I read Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon, and she might be one of my favorite romance authors now, and I just want to abandon everything and read every single book that she's ever written because she's so good. I tore this up. I loved it so much. I talk about it more in that vlog, but just hear me out. This was so good, and I'm so glad I finally got around to it. Oh my god, it was everything. Then I read Everyone Hates Kelsey Miller by Meredith Ireland. This was a new one. I really just went on TikTok to find some Academic Rivals books, and this was a hidden gem. I really enjoyed this. It has demisexuality rep, and also is set at UPenn. If you're from Pennsylvania, I thought that was a really fun element, and I also liked the character development in this book. For the Trope Taste Test, I also read I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston, and like I said, all my thoughts are in that vlog. This one had a manic pixie dream girl trope, and it reminded me a lot of Paper Towns, but honestly, for me, it was just fine. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I also did some sensitivity reading in July, so I'm not going to mention the book because I'm not sure what I can and can't mention, but I did do sensitivity reading for a book, so that is one book that I read. If you want to book my sensitivity reading services, I'll have my website linked down below, pucksandpaperbacks.com. I am a sensitivity reader for trans mask rep, trans men, trans boys, any trans mask representation, and generalized anxiety. I have it all listed on my website if you are in need of that and you think that we could be a good fit. You can definitely go and check that out. Okay, now that is everything I read in July. I didn't read that much in July. August is a different story. I ended up reading, for the first prompt, I read If You Change Your Mind by Robbie Weber, which I did include in my vlog. I loved this. I am so glad I finally got to Robbie's book because I've been saying, oh, I'm gonna read it. And finally, the time has come. I really enjoyed this as a summer read. This is about Harry Kingston, and his goal for the summer is to have no romance and to work on his screenplay to get into USC. But things quickly change when two boys enter his life, an ex and a new guy. This is another YA with really great character development and a messy queer character, which I really love. I love how Harry also didn't go unchecked, where there was a lot of shit that he did and everybody was like, listen, you can't be doing this. Like, get yourself together. I really enjoyed this. I'm glad that I got to pick it up, and if you want to know more of my thoughts, you can go and check out that reading vlog. I also read The Do's and Donuts of Love, which I also read in that vlog, and I had a donut, so definitely go and check it out. But oh my god, this was so good. I had the audio from Libro FM, and I also pre-ordered the physical copy, and I just enjoyed this so much. I just love Diva Jagadar, and this made me just fall in love with her again. I can't wait to read the rest of her books, but the thing I do is that I put off books until they have another one coming out, because I'm like, well, if I read Honey and Ishu, then I won't have anything else to read. And I know she has like a Titanic book, but that's just not my thing. And so I'm hesitant, but I might fit it in for Sapphic September, so we'll see what happens. But one thing about me is I love to read and watch competition shows, especially that are baking related. So this was way different than anything I'd ever read, and I loved it. We are following Shireen, who is a teen girl, and she recently broke up with her girlfriend Chris, who happens to be like a rival to her family's business. And I love that trope so much. But the thing is, Chris is also going to be on the first Irish baking show with Shireen. This book is tense. It literally feels like you're watching a baking show. Like, you know when you're watching a baking competition show, or like any competition show, and you got that anxiety? That's going to happen in this book, and it was just so good. I really enjoyed this because it also talks about like the behind the scenes. I was saying in my vlog how I love reading these kind of books because I love to think about the writer, because I'm like, wow, she actually made this whole show up. And I have tried to write a baking competition show, and it's hard. So I commend her for writing this because it was so good. We also have some romance in here, but I would really say it's character driven because Shireen is growing as a character, and I really enjoyed that. Adipa Jagadar is just the best, and I can't wait to read all of her books, but I don't want it to be over. And the last book that I actually read for that vlog was For the Record I Hate You by Amanda Gambill, and I don't even want to mention the book here, but it's my wrap-up, so I have to, but I did not really like this book. I have complicated feelings with this book because I like some things it did, but I also will never recommend it. I can't recommend it. It's not a healthy relationship whatsoever. And I forgot to even mention this in my vlog. I don't even know what was happening when I was editing that vlog because I realized I just didn't add a lot of the other commentary that I had, which basically when I first started reading it, I was so scared because I was reading it for the prompt to read a beautiful book. I thought it had a beautiful cover. It does. Maybe you should judge a book by its cover sometimes, because what was inside is not as beautiful as the outside. And I was really scared because I had seen no reviews from people that I know. And that scares me because I'm like, am I going to be set up for failure here? And it's hard to go by if a book has good ratings or not, because look at Colleen Hoover. She is like one of the most famous romance authors in the universe. And so I was super scared about this, and I feel like I just knew. I should have went with my gut instinct, because this was toxic. It was so toxic. This is following Derek and Eliza, and Eliza pretty much is upset because her and Derek were a thing. They weren't boyfriend and girlfriend, but they pretty much were. And so they had romantic feelings for each other, and on the night that they have sex with each other, basically never hears from him again, but there's context to that, okay? Miscommunication bothers me so much for these circumstances, because this girl, this whole time, was like, why did he do that? Why didn't I hear from him again? His brother died the night that they had sex. And he like died unexpectedly in a car accident. And this girl this whole time was like, I don't understand why. Because on one hand, yes, he should have talked through things and been like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't have a relationship right now because I'm going through a lot of shit. My brother died and I have a lot of grief and I don't know how to process it, and I'm going to college. And so he packed up and went to college, and the night he was packing, she secretly went to his house and broke his record player and stole it. Now, flash forward 4 years later, he's graduating from college. She is reuniting with him. She hates him still. And so she goes to his house. They sneak in and crash his graduation party. And she is mad that he got a new record player. And this whole time, I was so mad. I even say this in my vlog that it is mentioned like 45 times, this record player. And it's supposed to be symbolism of their relationship, because they say like, well, a record player can be replaced and fixed, but our relationship can't. Which honestly, it's for the best, because this was the most toxic relationship. And it was interesting because the girl, Eliza, is more so the villain. And now Derek has his shit. Like, he has done a lot of things, but he has admitted to it. I will also mention that there is a pregnancy trope, and this is why I'm just not recommending this book at all, because one, it's toxic, and like both characters don't develop. Like, Derek has way more growth, and he says he's going to grief therapy, and Eliza just like doesn't do anything with her life. Like, I was so confused, because I was like, okay, I would be fine if it didn't end like that, where like, okay, she still has shit to get through, but it's the fact that they got together at the end. Like, I don't want a happily ever after with two people that are so toxic for each other. It just is not good. And I meant to say this in my vlog, but like, as an author, it is your duty to show the reader a healthy relationship and a not healthy relationship. So saying that they get together at the end is showing that this is a toxic relationship, and it's okay to be with somebody who does that. Basically, Eliza like broke his piano at one point, and then they have sex afterward, and I was so confused, because I'm like, one, where's the emotional regulation? It's not there. And two, this is weird. Like, she broke your stuff and starts yelling at you, and then you have sex. Like, I just don't understand. I was so confused. But this is why my feelings are so complicated, because I'm like, well, I liked some things, but I didn't like the rest of the things, because it just wasn't cohesive. Like, you could have had this story without them being together at the end. I said this, like, as an adult, I read these romances and I'm like, I don't think any of you should be together. I really think you need to work on yourselves. I don't think this is a good idea at all. It's bad. I don't like it. So this one I wouldn't recommend. No way. You can do what you want. Next, for the Amazing Readathon, we had to read a retelling, and so I picked up Just As You Are by Camille Kellogg. This is a Pride and Prejudice retelling. It's queer. Mainly it's sapphic. There's a lot of sapphic people. There's some non-binary people in the book as well. I have never read Pride and Prejudice, but shout out to Crash Course, because John Green has a video on Crash Course that helped me kind of understand this, but I just don't think that I'm the right person to review this because I've never read it or watched Pride and Prejudice, so I was kind of confused. But I've seen a lot of people talking about this because it's marketed as a rom-com, but it's not really. Like, the romance isn't really there. Basically, she ends up like falling in love with her boss. This book reminded me a lot of the show The if you know that show, because it is about this magazine that is a queer magazine, and they end up getting shut down, and then these two women, they buy it, and then there's just a lot of things that happen. But I thought this was fine. I really wish I would have gotten more from it, because like there's some conflict and all, but a lot of people have said it's more of like a women's fiction or like a chick lit rather than a rom-com because the romance is so scarce. I'll link some reviews from sapphic reviewers down below because I know a few that really liked this book, but I just don't think I'm the audience for it, especially because I've never read Pride and Prejudice. So the whole time I was kind of trying to figure out who was who, and so I was stopping while reading, but I still enjoyed this. I didn't hate it. I would still recommend it if you want to read about queer people in New York and just like workplace romances and stuff like that. Yeah, it was fine. Next was Face Off Weekend, and basically this was to spin a wheel, and whichever country you get, you have to read a book with those flags' colors on it. So I ended up getting Portugal. I didn't read a lot that weekend, so I actually only ended up finishing Just As You Are, and I read the last book. I don't know if this is going to be a full series or not, but this was the last book in the House on Sunrise Lagoon series, Marina in the Middle, and it was so cute. This is about Marina, who was adopted into the Allie O'Connor family, and she is trying to find her place in it as well. And this was just so adorable. She has so much anxiety, and I always say this about Nicole Melleby. I love the way that she writes kids and family. She just does such a great job. This was so cute because Marina is so anxious, and as a fellow anxious person, I related to her so much, and this is a book I would have loved as a kid because I didn't know I had anxiety until I was 21, and so this is so important. Marina is just always so nervous about everything. She hates the boats because she's afraid of them now, and it's really her trying to talk through her feelings, but also she's scared to talk about anything. Therapy is scary to her. She's just trying to protect everybody, and it was so adorable. I will actually insert like my whole review here, the footage that I took, because that was my first reaction, and those are all of my thoughts. I really love the color of the hardcover, by the way. I feel like I never see this color red, but this was really cute. If you want a middle grade with a queer family and mental health rep, this is about Marina, who is 10 years old. She has been adopted by the Allie O'Connor family, and she feels like she is an outsider, and the whole book is her trying to find her safety net person and try to be somebody's favorite. And it was really sad, but it's also really cute and funny and fun because it is just a bunch of children in the summer having fun and going through some shenanigans. There's always some shenanigans going on in the Allie O'Connor family, but I really love the way that the conflicts are addressed. I always say this about Nicole Melleby's books, but I'll say it again. I really love the way that she writes the parents and the way that the conflicts are addressed by the parents. They make sure to tell the kid that it's not their fault, they're not a burden, they are just being punished for what they did, but it's not like a horrible punishment or anything like that. It might just be like a timeout for a day or something like that. Maybe they can't go and hang out with a friend. It is a very minimal punishment, and I just love love this family. I really hope that I get more books in this series because it's really cute. And this one in particular really hit home for me as a fellow anxious child. I was such an anxious child as a kid. I didn't talk to anybody, and Marina and I have very similar thought processes. As I was reading, there was a scene where she is talking about how she's afraid to go on the boats, and she talks about how many injuries and deaths there are on boats, and somebody tells her, oh, well, you're safe with your mom. She's never gotten in an accident or anything. Everybody trusts her. And then Marina follows that up saying, well, now that you said that, something bad's going to happen. And I thought that immediately before I read what Marina's response was. So as a fellow anxious person, I can confirm the anxiety rep is good for me personally. Anyway, I really enjoyed this, and it makes me really happy that Nicole Melleby writes books. Like, I just love the books that she writes because they also talk about counseling and therapy. And I was thinking about how a kid that may be going to therapy or is about to start, this would be a perfect book for them because they show a positive side to it, but also the kids are scared to go to counseling. So it's not like these kids totally get it. They are afraid. But by talking with other people, they learn that it would be a good thing. The Science of Being Angry is another one by Nicole Melleby that also talks about therapy. Yeah, so I really enjoyed this book. Highly recommend to pick up this series if you want to read some queer middle grade and you just want to continue with the summer vibes. I just think this is such a cute series, and I hope that we get more books from it because it's adorable. Next, I had to read a romance, so I picked up Caroline's Heart by Austin Chant, and this was so romantic. This is both a slice of life, a western because it's a western setting, and it's a T for T romance, and it is so romantic. Cicely is a witch pretty much. Like, she can heal people and she has spells that she can do and all of that. And so there's this trans man, Roy, who is in the saloon. He ends up getting shot. Cicely saves him and gives him Caroline's heart, but he doesn't know that. And so this whole time she is using him as like a ticking time bomb because she's like, I want to save this heart. And oh my god, it was just so romantic. Like, honestly, if you want to read a romance, like, let's say it's Valentine's Day and you're like, I really want to read something romantic, this. It was just so romantic. Oh my god, I'm so mad that I never got around to it sooner, but I'm glad that I got a chance to read it this month because it was just so good. Austin Chant, they're awesome. And I just love them. So this was awesome. I loved it so much. This is just great. It's under 200 pages, and I had read so much that I was like, oh my god, I need something short, and this was such a good palate cleanser. Oh my god, it was just great. Next, I read another romance, which was a host favorite, and if you read a host favorite, you got extra points. You got 50 extra points. So I read The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hong, another book that I had been meaning to get to, and another very romantic book. This was such a good romance, and this month I had read so many healthy relationships besides the For the Record I Hate You. That one doesn't count. It doesn't count. I read so many good, healthy relationships, and I was so happy about it. Basically, if you haven't heard, this is such a popular romance for a good reason, because this was so good. I listened to the audiobook, and I really enjoyed it. I think that Helen Huang is a very good storyteller, and I really liked her spicy scenes. The steamy scenes were very good, but again, I just really enjoyed this relationship because it was healthy. Our main character, Stella, does have a lot of growth, and I just really enjoyed the trajectory of her romance. If you don't know what this book is about, it follows Stella, who is an autistic woman, and she works in STEM, and she wants to hire a male escort because she realizes she doesn't really know much about sex, and she wants to improve. And the romance between her and the escort is slow burn, but it's good and healthy. And what I loved is just the consent. Like, there's consent. Michael is so patient, and he's always asking her if this is okay, if that's okay. And he just is awesome. As a neurodivergent person, this is couple goals, relationship goals. So good. I can't wait to read The Bride Test. I started it, but I didn't get a chance to finish it because the readathon, you can't stop at any point. The readathon controls you. Next, I read a novella because I needed to rack up all of the money I could. So this was a host favorite. Basically, if you read a book in a series that was the host favorite, you could still get points. So I ended up reading Once Ghosted, Twice Shy by Alyssa Cole in the Reluctant Royals series. I need to read this whole series. I think Alyssa Cole is going to be my romance author because I've tried Talia Hibbert and I don't think she's for me. I recently, this year, I DNF'd her YA book. I didn't like it that much. I couldn't get into it. And so Alyssa Cole is everything for me. I can't wait to read all of her books because this was so good. If you want another satisfying but short and sweet romance, this is it. Once Ghosted, Twice Shy by Alyssa Cole is in the Reluctant Royals series. I'm definitely going to read it all. She gave me Adriana Herrera vibes, and I love Adriana Herrera, and so I think Alyssa Cole is going to be my girl because I really enjoyed the way she wrote this. And it's following Likotsi, and she has had heartbreak. She decided to go on a dating app and she met a girl and the girl broke her heart. This is a second chance romance as Likotsi meets Fab, the girl who broke her heart, and Fab just asks her for a minute. Can they have tea together and talk about it? And so it's a healthy relationship again where they really learn about why the ghosting happened. Like, she didn't mean it. There was just a lot of shit going on in her life. And so, if you can write a good miscommunication, I'm sold. And this one had the spicy scenes, but it also had a healthy relationship. Oh, it was great. I can't wait to read more. If you have any Alyssa Cole recommendations, leave them in the comments because I want to read all of her books now. I had read her before, but I never finished the book. I had DNF'd it. It was the one about the AI, and I just couldn't get into it, so I think that this is my cup of tea. Which is interesting because I'm not really a big royalty fan. Like, I don't really read books about royalty, but I guess if you make them queer, sign me up. But yeah, this was really cute. Next, for a coastal setting, I read a cozy mystery set on Lake Michigan. This was 2-part sugar, 1-part myrrh by Valerie Burns, and this was really good. I enjoyed it. I don't read that many cozy mysteries, but I want to read the rest of the series because it was good. But there were some points that rubbed me the wrong way. More so that basically the girl who comes to this town, her aunt had died and left her the estate. She's never met this aunt before, but she is watching tapes of her and trying to uncover a mystery in the town. Talks all about gentrification and how a lot of these people are getting run out of the town, and there is a murder that happens in the bakery that her aunt left her. Her aunt had this famous bakery, and you know, I love that. So this was really interesting because the girl just had no idea what she was doing. She didn't know how to run a business, and there is a little bit of a romance. I wasn't that sold on it, honestly. I think I'm just at the point where I'm like, if I want to read a romance, I will, but like, I don't think a romance needs to be in every book. And I know that conversation has happened all the time because it's true. Like, I would rather read about the mystery than about a romance. I don't care. One gripe I had is that she is social media famous and the town people keep saying she's a social media genius. It might have just been because I was being narrated the book. I read it on audiobook, but the hashtags are not good. It made no sense because she's using these long hashtags like your 6-year-old mother is writing on Facebook. Like, you know how they write like a whole sentence in the hashtag? That's pretty much what it was. It would say that the engagement was so high where she got like 100,000 likes and stuff. Like, one was just for posting the dog, which it might happen. I was so confused because I'm just like, she is not a social media genius. Like, I get if she's in a small town, that's probably what they're going to say, but it was so annoying because, one, they would just read you the hashtags, and every time I would just be like, she's not a social media genius. There's no way that she'd be getting all of these likes if she had these long hashtags. It was so annoying. But I still want to read the rest of this series because it was a good mystery. I liked it. But I will say the main character, you might not like her choices. She's very unlikable because she's doing a lot of things that you're just like, no, stop doing that. Stop right now. Speaking of books that I had been wanting to finish or just didn't have a good time to read, I finally read and loved Mexican Gothic. Oh my god, this was incredible. I am kicking myself for not finishing this sooner, but I got the audiobook from Libby, and the last time I had read it, I had the audiobook, but it expired and I just didn't have the time. And so I had the time in August, and I loved this so much because I just wanted to read different genres, because if I'm reading so many books at once, it's really hard to want to read the same book genre over and over. So I thought horror would be good. Holy shit, I am not somebody that gets spooked very easily. I will link my friend Alex. She did a video where she read this book, and she is a scaredy cat, and it was so good. And when she talked about this book and was like, I can't sleep, I was like, oh, haha. Oh my god, this was so disturbing to the point where, like, I like to snack while I read. No, like, I couldn't even do that. Like, I couldn't read it while I ate dinner or anything. I was actually ill reading this book. Like, it was so disturbing, and I commend Sylvia Marina Garcia for that. I can't wait to read the rest of her books because this was so good. Honestly, I hope that another book of hers can top this because this was so amazing. It exceeded my expectations. I had no idea what I was getting into when I was reading this book, and I feel like that's the same for a lot of people, because I was like, oh yeah, it's a horror. I've read Stephen Graham Jones. What's it gonna be? Don't read this at night. Don't eat while reading this. You're gonna be sick while reading this because the descriptions of everything are so graphic, and the whole story is like so spooky and disgusting. Disturbing is the best word I can use for this. And it was just incredible. Speaking of storytelling, what a great story. Like, she's a really great storyteller. Definitely can't wait to pick up more of her books because this was so good. I just got from Libro FM her newest book, Silver Nitrate, I think it's called. But wow, this really exceeded my expectations. Next, another favorite book of mine from the month is The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. This is so different from her sapphic romance, and I was trying so hard not to compare them because they are two opposite books. And I was hoping I would get the same outcome that I did with Kiss Her Once for Me because I devoured that book. But this one, I feel like it is slower in a sense because they're really building up to the romance and the characters, but I just loved it so much. Oh my god. This is another book that exceeded my expectations because, like, I didn't expect to love it as much as I did, and it was really because it was such a healthy relationship and both characters were just so sincere to each other and kind, and I really just loved it. I know some people read romance because they would love to have this type of romance in their life and all, right? Yes. I want to give this to, like, my next partner and just be like, this is what I want, please. Please give this to me. Like, there are things that happen in this book that are complicated and not good, but we're following Dave. That is how it's pronounced on the audiobook, so I apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong. And then Charlie, and so Charlie is our star, and he is going on to this show like The Bachelorette. Charlie is trying to save his reputation after something happened at his job, and so he is trying to save face and make the public like him again. But what you don't know is that he has OCD. I really liked how we were in Charlie's head all the time, and the anxiety that he had was just so real, and it was just nice to see a character like that, especially in an adult romance. I really enjoyed that, and I just really enjoyed this romance because, like I said, it was really... My memory card filled up, so it is the next day, and I left off talking about The Charm Offensive. I loved this so much because it talked about mental health in a healthy way, and I really liked the perspective of being on reality TV and this was just such a great book. You know when you read a book and at the end you just feel so good? That is exactly how I felt finishing The Charm Offensive. I really enjoyed it. I don't have too much more to say other than I really enjoyed two people with mental health falling in love, and the positivity. One of my favorite and most memorable scenes was when Dave was having a depressive episode and Charlie comes in their room and just asks him what he could do. Like I said, this is relationship goals. I really enjoyed it, and I am so mad that Alison Cochrane doesn't have any more books. She has a book coming out next year, but as I read her books, I just don't understand how there's only two. She is such an experienced writer that I feel like she should have more than 3 books. What's the deal here? I need to have more of her books. I feel like she is writing under a pseudonym that I don't know. Like, I just need more of her books. This is what I'm saying, is that I hate to be finished an author's backlist or just all of their work. I'm really sad when it comes to an end, don't have any more to read. It's really upsetting. But I really enjoyed this. Let me know if you've read it and what your thoughts were. Now we're on to the final 2 books, including Dear Haiti, Love Elaine by Marika Mulik and Maritza Mulik. I had been wanting to read this for such a long time, and I'm so glad that this readathon gave me a chance to finally get to it. If you want a YA set in Haiti with a lot of family drama as well as a complicated mother-daughter relationship, I highly recommend this. I really enjoyed it. The audiobook was really good as well, but it was written in epistolary format, and I would have rather read the physical copy or had a hybrid reading experience because I wanted to be able to see everything, because there's like news headlines, there's social media posts and things like that. I really hope I get a chance to read the physical copy in the future because I did really enjoy this and I cannot wait to read more of their work. Their other book is called One of the Good Ones. This was just such a unique YA book. I will give a trigger warning for dementia because there is a lot of talk about that. There's a character who is living with dementia, but it also debunks a lot of myths about dementia, which I thought was interesting because as Elaine finds out this information, she is learning more about dementia. She knew only the stereotypical version and she's actually learning about it while she's in Haiti. The book also goes into depth about Haitian history, which I thought was cool as well. And I just enjoyed the way that this book was set up. This is definitely the type of book that you need to read it to know what other people are talking about. But I highly recommend it if you like books about family drama and you want to read a book set in Haiti. I thought this was really excellent and I cannot wait to read more of the author's work. And last, I read an anticipated read. This was Throwback by Maureen Gu. I've only read one of her books, but I think this is her best. I read her one about K-dramas, and I wasn't a big fan of it, but this one was so good. I don't know if it was because it hit on nostalgia or what, but I thought that this was really good. This is a inspired book, and I just want her to write everything. Like, I want to see a book from her. This is a inspired YA book set in 1995. It is following this girl named Sam, and she gets in a fight with her mother. The book is set in 2025 in the future, and Sam is transported to 1995 where she meets her mom in high school, and it was so good. I loved everything about this because it really teaches Sam to know more about her history. This is another book that talks about family history. It also talks about generational trauma, as Sam feels like she doesn't know her mom, and it's a typical teenage angst of like, my mother doesn't get me. But then as she's in 1995, she's learning all about her grandmother, her great-grandmother. She's learning about her mother and what she had to do in school. Her mother owns a dry cleaner and Sam had to help her run this. It has made me want to watch the movie the book is inspired by. I haven't gotten a chance to yet, but I definitely want to because this was just so good. If you like that movie, you're definitely going to enjoy this. It is a YA book, so it's very angsty. There is a romance, which I didn't care for. At the end, it was sweet sweet and I was fine with it, but I just didn't think it mattered. I didn't need it. The conversations were strong, and I think that instead of the romance, we could have focused on friendship, but there are so many nostalgic references. I just enjoyed this so much, from the nostalgia to talking about generational trauma and just other little things. I was laughing out loud because there's so many times where Sam slips up because she's trying not to share that she's from the future, but she accidentally says that she texted somebody and they don't even bat an eye, but I thought it was really funny. Even though this is a funny book, it does touch on heavy topics. I highly recommend this if you are looking for a sweet book that you can read in like a couple days or even a day or two. This is a short book that you can use for a readathon, or you can read in a couple days. Honestly, I think it only took me like 2 days to read it, and I had the audiobook. For the Amazing Readathon, I had to read a book that has genre blending, so this was a contemporary romance or a YA contemporary with some sci-fi elements because it did have time travel. So if you're like me and you don't like heavy sci-fi and you just like light sci-fi in your contemporaries, I highly recommend this. It was so good. Let me know if you've read this or read any of the books I mentioned in this video. Let's talk in the comments because I feel like it's been a while since I have really posted a video. I do have a lot of content coming, so if you're new here, feel free to hit subscribe. I talk about queer and trans books a lot on this channel, so hit subscribe and turn on my post notifications so you don't miss a video. My social media links are down below, and I also have a Patreon if you'd like to support this channel further. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up. It really helps with my channel when you do so, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.